NBC's Craig Melvin. Craig, thanks so much for keeping us posted on that. I want to bring in our panel, former prosecutor and assistant DA Bernstein, who is an experienced litigator in child sexual abuse cases, and writer Pablo Torre, who has been covering the Penn State scandal for Sports Illustrated. Good morning to both of you. BJ, I want to start with you because Sandusky's attorney came out swinging a little while ago, calling into question McQueary's credibility, as we're just hearing there from Craig Melvin, who's on the scene. Is McQueary really the crux of their case because the alleged victim's testimony would be too damaging?
You know, he's making, obviously that's what he's got to hang on to because there's been these contradictory statements supposedly in the media. But the truth is, and why he had to cancel that hearing, is when those victims testify, it is incredibly powerful. And he's not ready to cross-examine them. He's not ready to go after them because it will just, the bad media that he's had would snowball. So I see why he did what he did, but it's not going to destroy necessarily the state's case just because McQueary's around.
Pablo, when we talk about Mike McQueary, what is the issue with the credibility that's now come up in the media?
Well, the issue is that there are at least 4 separate versions of the story that have come out, and that's kind of the problem with letting this case play out in public. We differ on who exactly he told and what he told in terms of the severity of what he witnessed, how explicit it was, whether he heard sounds, whether he saw the act himself, and what exactly, of course, he told Joe Paterno, his father, and thus the credibility of Graham Spanier, the former president of Penn State, and Tim Curley are both lying in the balance, too. BJ,
a lot of people are Monday morning quarterbacking every move that Amendola makes about this, especially when it comes to the fact that he's allowed Jerry Sandusky to give 2 very intense interviews, one to NBC's Bob Costas, the other to the New York Times. When we see what happened today in court, do you think this gives an indication that there might be potential for a plea deal? Because in essence, this is saving a lot of grief for the Sandusky family to hear these intense details playing out in a courtroom, and it might mean that there are some backroom dealings going on.
That's always a possibility. The hard part with this particular case, though, is that, you know, if he really did this with so many different victims, it's not just going to be some sort of probation home confinement case. We're talking serious jail time. And the way Sandusky has been talking to the media, he's not seeming like he's ready to accept responsibility and say, I did it, and send me to prison for a long time. His wife has spoken out. He's spoken out. His lawyer's spoken out. They've done everything indicating otherwise. So, quote, a deal indicates that you're going to get a low sentence, and that's not probably what prosecutors are going to give. So it really could be that we have to see this play out completely through a trial.
BJ, at 67 years old, though, do you think that this is a guy that wants to go to a really messy trial like this, giving more time for alleged victims to come forward? Obviously, since the 40 charges were originally leveled, it's now gone up to 52 charges since 2 more victims came forward. Doesn't this give more time for all of this to percolate and more things to come out and bubble up?
It does, but at the same time, again, he's 68 years old. Does he want to go to jail for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? These kind of offenses, you are usually not released early. You're on lifetime sex offender registries. And so those are the factors to say, you know, the longer this case goes, it may be the longer that he's not in jail. So it's a catch-22 for him, which is why, truthfully, none of us can totally predict what's going on behind closed doors and what his clients trying to decide to do.
BJ Bernstein, Pablo Torre, I want to thank both of you for being here this morning. I want to bring in Tom.